What if I told you that some of America's first slaveholders weren't white plantation owners, but Native American leaders? What if I told you that even after emancipation, even after the Civil War, even after blood was spilled for freedom, black people, known as freedmen, were still denied their rights by the very Cherokee Nation that once enslaved them? This is not the story America likes to tell. It is a story of betrayal, broken treaties, and centuries of legal battles. It is a story that forces us to ask, who gets to belong? Who decides who is native enough? And why do the wounds of slavery still cut deep, even within a people who themselves were victims of oppression and removal? The Cherokee are remembered in American history as victims of injustice, the trail of tears, forced removals, broken promises, but hidden in that story is a painful truth. Some Cherokee owned enslaved Africans. By the late 1700s and early 1800s, the 5 civilized tribes, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, adopted many practices of the American South. They built plantations, they farmed with enslaved black labor. Historian Theda Perdue writes, Cherokee society became stratified, and elites sought to prove their civilization by embracing the same institution that defines Southern wealth, slavery. By 1860, thousands of African Americans lived in bondage under tribal ownership. This fact is rarely taught in schools. Why? Because it disrupts the easy narrative of oppressed versus oppressor. The Cherokee were victims of U.S. expansion, but they were also participants in the system of racial slavery. When the Civil War erupted, the Cherokee Nation split. Some supported the Union, others the Confederacy, and with them came their enslaved people, forced into service, into labor, into a war that was not theirs. When the Union won, the federal government made new treaties with the tribes in 1866. The treaty with the Cherokee contained a radical promise: all freedmen and their descendants shall have all the rights of native Cherokees. On paper, it was clear. Formerly enslaved Africans and their children would be citizens of the Cherokee Nation, equal, belonging, permanent. But paper is one thing, reality is another. For decades after the treaty, Cherokee freedmen lived in the nation, farming, working, raising families. They built schools, churches, and communities. But as the 20th century approached, racial politics hardened. In the U.S., Jim Crow laws swept across the South. White supremacy demanded sharp lines, black versus white. And inside the Cherokee Nation, similar pressures arose. Citizenship rolls, the Dawes Rolls, were created to determine who was Indian by blood and who was not. Thousands of freedmen were placed on separate rolls, even if they had Cherokee ancestry. This bureaucratic decision would haunt their descendants for over a century. By the 1980s and 1990s, Cherokee leaders began formally expelling freedmen descendants from citizenship rolls. The justification: they were not Indian by blood. The result: thousands of black families who traced their heritage to the 1866 treaty were told they no longer belonged. They were erased from the nation's records, denied health benefits, scholarships, and political voice. The freedmen descendants did not stay silent. They organized, protested, and sued. In 2017, a landmark U.S. District Court ruling forced the Cherokee Nation to honor the 1866 treaty. Judge Thomas Hogan wrote, The Cherokee Freedmen's right to citizenship in the Cherokee Nation is directly tethered to the Treaty of 1866. It was a victory, but not the end. Other tribes, like the Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw still resist full inclusion of freedmen descendants. Legal battles continue, each case reopening old wounds. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. recently acknowledged, "Our history with slavery is painful, but the path forward requires us to confront it, not deny it." This story forces us to wrestle with deeper questions. What does it mean to be Cherokee? Is it ancestry? Is it culture? Is it a piece of paper? For freedmen descendants, the answer is simple. Their ancestors lived as part of the Cherokee Nation. They were enslaved, freed, and promised equal citizenship. To deny them is to break history itself. But for some, within the Cherokee Nation, identity is tied to blood quantum, a concept rooted not in Cherokee tradition, but in U.S. government policy. Blood quantum was a colonial tool designed to erase native populations over generations. By using it against freedmen descendants, tribes risk repeating the erasure forced upon them. The story of the Cherokee Freedmen is not just about the past, it is about today. It asks, can American native nations within it face the truth about slavery, about race, about promises made and broken? It reveals that oppression is not a simple story of one people against another. It is layered, complex, and deeply human, and it leaves us with this haunting truth. Treaties, like memories, only matter if they are honored. Historian Alina Roberts writes in her book, I've Been Here All the While. The freedmen remind us that freedom is never just given, it is demanded, fought for, and defended across generations. The Cherokee Freedmen's struggle is not just history, it is a mirror. It shows us America's contradictions, a nation built on freedom, yet rooted in slavery. It shows us native resilience, but also native participation in oppression. And it shows us that justice delayed is never justice denied, because the freedmen and their descendants are still here, still fighting, still demanding inclusion. The question is, will we listen?